we haven't had a fatal accident due to a drone collision. And I think we're getting complacent with the fact that so far, all these examples we've seen have been fairly low-key.
Greg Reverdiau with us today, helm of the Pilot Institute, helping thousands of drone pilots gain the knowledge and skills they need to succeed in this evolving field.
A drone going through a windshield of a helicopter, it's a piece of paper. If it hits the pilot in the face, the pilot will pass out and potentially crash.
How should training programs evolve to better prepare pilots for operations involving greater autonomy and eventually routine BVLOS?
We have to make sure that the training involves recognizing other aircraft in the area and avoiding other aircraft in the area. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge of this industry.
What strategies can pilots and agencies employ to manage fatigue and stress during prolonged incidents or complex drone operations?
I see a lot of people saying, well, I'm used to operating tired because I'm tired all the time. But this is actually something that your brain tells you to make you feel good, but in reality, you have to.
Welcome to Dronecast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time, a podcast by DroneSense. We explore real-world applications of drones in emergency response, offering a close examination of evolving trends in drone technology and its impact on public safety. I'm your host, Joe Kearns, Strategic Partnership Manager here at DroneSense. And hey, as you're listening, I'd love to hear from you. Maybe there's a story or a challenge from your own experience that resonates, or is there a topic you'd like me to cover in future episodes? Reach out to us on LinkedIn by searching for Dronecast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time, or visit DroneSense.com/Dronecast to share your thoughts. Your feedback helps shape the show, and you might just inspire our next episode. Now, let's dive into today's conversation on advancing public safety through drones. Welcome back to Dronecast. I'm your host, Joe Kearns. And in this part 2 of our deep dive with Greg from the Pilot Institute, in the first half, we unraveled regulations around Part 107 and their new certificate of waiver. Now we're shifting from the technology to the most crucial component of any mission, the human operator. Get ready as we explore decision-making under pressure, building a true safety culture, and future-proofing your drone program for the advancement just around the corner. Let's jump right back in. Now, I want to dive into the COA conundrum and navigating the FAA authorizations for public safety operations. And also want to dive into the fact that now COA has a new term, and we'll dive into that here in a moment. And as I wrote a bunch of these questions and concepts down for our episode here, it was prior to that. So it's fun. We'll have to dive into a lot of this. This is great. But now, choosing between operating under Part 107 or obtaining a public safety certificate of authorization, COA, is there a complex strategic decision here? What are some real-world operational advantages, compliance burdens, practical hurdles associated with each of these? And yeah, what would you say here?
Yeah, I think the burden is you hit it right on the head. I think it depends on the complexity of your department. If you have a two-man operation, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go through that whole process, which can be lengthy. Although I have to say the new system, and the jury's still out because it's still fairly new, like you said, is a lot easier than it used to be. We had a course available that we recorded with Brendan Carr. He
Who's that guy?
Yeah, who's that guy, right?
I'm kidding.
Brendan did an amazing job.
Shout out.
Shout out to Brendan, amazing guy. He did a great job at explaining the complexity of that process that it was in the past. And we just looked at it when the announcement was done. We were like, what are we going to do with this course, which we provide for free, by the way, on our website. And I was talking to Jason, our UAS expert, and he said, I think it's going to be just a one-liner that basically says, here's how you apply, and you just follow the steps. And it's that much easier that we almost don't need to have a course to explain any of the steps. It's all self-explanatory, which is good. The more the FAA goes that route where we don't have to have all these waivers and all these things, the better it is. Now, as far as choosing between a COA and Part 107 operation, you have to understand the limitations of Part 107, right? They're still pretty strict as far as flying beyond visual line of sight, flying over people and over people in moving vehicles. Those are the two biggest restrictions that I would see from and then possibly, the visibility requirement sometimes if you're a firefighter, for example, and there's a lot of smoke that you're flying around. But these are the limitations that the FAA put on drones. They're not impossible to get rid of by using waivers, but these waivers are going to take a while. We have our local police department that we have a great relationship with them. They were here the other day because they're building up their program. So we're providing them with, help on how to submit all of these requests for waivers to fly beyond visual line of sight, to fly over people, and it's a complex world. So if your operation is more complex, if you're in an environment where you have a complex airspace maybe, or if you have a lot of people that you need to fly over, or if you just need to fly pretty far, or fly even around the building and no longer see the drone, there are options now under the COA process, the COW process now, to make all that happen. So that's when I would start to look into that side of the regulation. Just understand that it's a different world. You're operating typically under Part 91, which is not Part 107. So the rules are slightly different. It goes back to our first discussion. You have to go back and make sure that the people that are operating under that certificate understand what the limitations of the certificate are, because otherwise you can get in trouble. So make sure that you do the proper training for all of your new employees that are coming in so that they know how to operate, what they can and cannot do under that approval.
That's great. Now, we talked about a couple waivers. Maybe could we touch on some advanced waivers like tactical BVLOS?
Yep. Yeah, so tactical BVLOS is kind of designed to provide this. When we think about BVLOS, I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to be flying 10 miles, that way with my drone and not being able to see anything. The tactical BVLOS is kind of the opposite of that. It's more of like a localized beyond visual line of sight waiver, where you have the ability to operate within the small environment where you're responding and then be able to do things that otherwise you couldn't. So, that example of going around the building, now you can't see the drone. Technically under Part 107, that's not allowed. With that tactical BVLOS waiver, you can do those things. So the FAA, as much as we sometimes are not happy with what they do, they are listening to the way people operate drones, and especially public safety. I think one of the most responsive department out there are the folks that provide all these approvals for public safety agencies, the SOSC waiver office, because they understand that public safety agencies have a different need for using the drones that the general public usually doesn't. And so they've been listening, they've been putting things in place, and I think there's a lot of organizations out there that are also helping push the FAA and help them understand. I'm thinking Drone Responders, for example, spends a lot of time talking to the FAA and helping with these things. So all that is great. It's very positive for the industry. It's probably slower than most people want to see, myself included, but at least it's happening, and we're getting more options to fly the drones.
It is happening, right? And I could probably, maybe you feel the same way too, but for a while there, it was definitely sluggish. But man, I feel there is lots of movement now. I feel there's a lot of adoption. There is a lot of listening, and we're finally feeling heard, and the industry is moving forward from that. So love it.
Yeah, and I know, we have a great relationship with the FAA and a few folks at the FAA office, and they call us from time to time and they say, hey, listen, we're thinking of doing this. What do you think from your perspective? Because we talk to a lot of students, we talk to a lot of different operators, so they're trying to get the temperature. So they're not doing this in a cocoon, right? And I know they talk to other people as well, not just us, but it's great that they're getting that feedback from the industry to say, this is what we plan on doing. What do you think? And how can we tweak this? So I love to see that. That's a great positive thing.
Yes. Now, what are some of the common pitfalls that can be avoided during the COA application process, and what's the key to success? And then also tailor this to COA. Cow.
I think it's all cow. It's I like to say COW. I think it sounds a little better, but the pitfalls, I think, is not following what the FAA is requesting. Typically, the FAA is fairly specific about the things that they want. And so you can't just I have an analogy that I use all the time. I said, it's like you're a teenager and you're asking the key to the car, your parents' car, to go drive, right? You're going to have to make a little speech to your parents and say, I'm going to be safe. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that to make sure that I don't crash the car. So make sure that you get the keys. This is the same thing. You're asking permission from your parents to go fly that drone in an environment that is going to be outside of the regulation. So you have to make the FAA feel warm and fuzzy about letting you do it. And so you have to have all these things in place that says, I know we're not supposed to do this, but here's how we're going to do it. We're going to have a visual observer here in the corner. We're going to have this. We're going to have that. Give them all your safety mitigation, they call it. And don't be afraid to give the FAA a lot of information, because eventually they're going to come back and say, if you don't have enough information, they might come back and say, we want more, okay? Or they might come back and say, no, you just don't have enough. We talked to the folks at the office that issues the waiver, and they tell us, you should see some of the applications we get. Okay, why do you want to do this? Just because. Okay, literally people say just because. And they're probably not on the public safety side of things, but my point is, don't be afraid to expand on how you're going to operate and how you're going to operate safely.
Yes, well said, well said. Now, under what particular operational circumstances does pursuing a certificate of authorization or certificate of waiver offer significant advantages over the Part 107 plus waivers?
Yeah, I think it's in how easy it is going to be to get these waivers, especially in an emergency situation. You'd have more chances of getting that immediate approval to fly in a zero grid, for example, or to fly when there is a lot of people around or whatever it is. I think the FAA is going to be a lot more comfortable giving you that approval if you have that certificate of waiver. So yeah, I think that's why, going back when I said, for more complex operation, I would go and do that work. I do want to add something which always comes up, because the FAA under a COA and said that you can self-train your pilots. And I know this sounds like it's self-interest on my part, because we provide 107 training, but I'm going to tell public safety departments to use Part 107 as the base at the bare minimum, because this is what the FAA says, right? It's got to be at least the base, because your training program has to be at least as good as Part 107, and then you can add on top of it. But don't think that you're saving $175 with the test by doing your own training in-house, because you can. Technically, you can have your own training in-house, never do Part 107. But when something happens, the FAA is going to come back and they're going to say, show me where in your training you provided this, this, and this, and this, and this. And that's when stuff hits the fan, right? So if you have 107 as a base, you can say, well, we have them do the 107 training at the very least. They have their test taken with the FAA. They have their certificate. And that's the bare minimum that we require. Then we do this on top of it. That would be my recommendation. You're not saving anything by saving $175 per person. It's all liability down the road that is going to come back and bite you if something happens.
Fair. Now, how could agencies streamline compliance when managing and reporting requirements?
So this is difficult, because I don't remember what the new requirements for reporting are in the COW, because in the COA, the requirements for reporting were complex and not user-friendly at all. We talked to many, many agencies that were complaining about that process. And I have to admit, I don't know what the new requirements are under the COW. I haven't looked at that in detail. So hopefully it's changed, but it is difficult to do. It was difficult under the COA to do that reporting.
Right. And it's in the FAA has been listening and making this easier and easier, because they do want more operations, but very well safe, certified, and professionally done, correct?
It has to be easier. So there's this concept in main aircraft world called the SMS, the Safety Management System. And this is a concept that, started about 15 years ago, where the airlines really develop this thing where you have an entire system. When something happens, it gets reported from the bottom up. And then you have a person that's in charge of reviewing these reports and then can take action and make changes to the training program. I know some departments are using SMS these days in their program, but we need to encourage doing that. The biggest thing is that the safety management system is a non-punitive program that collects data on safety. So if something happens, we talked about the guy that didn't arm the drone correctly and then it folded in flight, right? This is something that needs to be reported, but is non-punitive. People make mistakes. It's okay. We need to collect that data. We need to share it with the rest of the organization and make sure that they understand that, okay, this happened. Let's not do it again. And so I've in my flight training days, this is something that we did at every flight school that I had. We had a very robust safety management system in place with reporting documents where you could report something, even anonymously, which is good. It has to be anonymous almost in a sense, where you get that data. We've heard in the last couple of days of accidents that happen at large training programs across the country on the drone side. I hope that these events are getting reported to a safety management system that can then be shared with the rest of the community. The FAA and NASA have this thing called a NASA report, the ASRS report, which is a non-punitive, anonymous way to report accidents that have happened or incidents that have happened. And NASA collects that data as a third party and then puts that data together and then shares it with the rest of the world after it's been anonymized. So I also would say to public safety agencies, put that in your program. Have a way for people to report to this NASA report program so that we can collect as an industry and learn from all these mishaps.
That is a really good point. Throughout this industry, I've noticed that when you give honesty, you receive honesty, and being very transparent to the public and so on. And again, changing perspective of what drones are, drone operations, and we're not just spying on your daughter sunbathing in the backyard or in a window, all this kind of stuff. And this is another element to that. It's just sharing this and building this community and building this place where we can learn from each other, even if it is mistakes, because what better way to learn, right?
Yeah. I heard something recently that made me very worried in a sense about a certain manufacturer. I don't need to name them because it doesn't matter who they are, that has a sort of an NDA program in place so that when there's a mishap, none of the employees can talk about it. And this could be that they can't talk about it publicly, but I hope this is not something that is preventing these employees from reporting this data to the NASA report, for example, or to the safety management system, because then what happens is we're just stifling, these issues that happen with drones just for the reputation of a certain manufacturer. And I think this goes completely against everything that we see in this industry with the safety management system. This is something that we need to share and say, hey, this happened. Let's make sure that it doesn't happen again with other drones and other departments.
Fair. Now, what is the practical reality and obtaining and utilizing tactical BVLOS waivers under a COA? And what are the training and technology prerequisites going into this?
So there's not a ton of prereqs, but as far as the positives on getting that waiver is that you can operate way more freely when you get to the scene. You don't have to worry about I'm not going to say you don't have to worry about the regulation because that's not true. You have to worry about the limitations that you have on that waiver, right? But that waiver opens up a lot more possibilities. Again, the perfect example is this drone. You have to go around the corner to see if the fire is coming from behind the building. In theory, you would either have to move or you would not be able to do it. Well, now you can actually do that. So it's a lot less stress on the operator because now they have a lot more freedom to do their job within the confine of this scene that they're working at. So that would probably be one of the first things that I would apply for if I was a department that had a COW. I would go and apply for that immediately. Even if you don't need it right away, it's something that you'll have available in the future.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Greg. Now, I think it's time we can dive into the human element of all of this. And let's talk about some of this whole side of it. Now, drone technology is advancing rapidly, but human operator remains central to mission success and safety. How can a deeper understanding of human factors in decision-making under pressure, situational awareness, limitations, stress management, safety culture, all of this be integrated into a public safety drone programs to mitigate risk and enhance effectiveness?
Yeah, this is a very long discussions that I think public safety agencies need to have. All these elements we've talked about so far, right? The safety management system, the training and the scenario-based training, all of these things combined together is what makes a safety program a program safe. And so it's not just one element, it's all of these things kind of put together. You talk about how drones are getting more complex, right? And they have more technology. They're easy to fly in a sense until something happens, and then we have to react very quickly. I find myself, we get a lot of drones from manufacturers here at Pilot Institute. People send them to us, we do reviews, we do deep dives, we do a lot of things. But after a few months,
which are great. Sorry, shameless plug. Wonderful. And I always watch your weekly updates and so on. So
well,
applaud
thank
to
you.
this.
But you know, after a while, I find myself, somebody asked a question about a drone, and I haven't touched it in a while, and I just don't remember the answer because that drone is specific to it, very specific, and so I would have to go back to the menu and look because I just can't remember every single one of them. So I can see somebody else who has a variety of drones available to them, and they keep switching between platforms. You have to know those little details about these drones. We had an accident here at Pilot Institute because of something that I think will never happen again, and I'll tell you why. In DJI drones, you have a way to shut down motors in flight. There's an option in there that if you do the right command right on the inside, it can actually shut off the motors in flight. And that function by default is not turned on, right? It's a way the motors only turn off when the drone is in a weird attitude, and which is fine. This is a great feature. So if you were to lose a motor, the drone starts to flip, then it's going to shut off all the other motors. So when it hits the ground, at least nothing is spinning. But with this option turned on, you can shut off the motors in flight. And I was doing a mission, I was recording something, and as it happens, the maneuver that I was doing was just that. I was descending and yawing, and I was also going in the opposite direction because I was doing an orbit that was kind of a corkscrew like this, and the motor shut off in flight.
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah. And it's a real maneuver that you can do, but one of our team members, and we've never verified that, but our guess, what happened is that one of our team members was reviewing this drone, and we were doing B-roll of the controller, and we were showing all the options and check in, check off, check in, check off, so that we can use that as B-roll in our footage. And they toggle this switch in the settings from the default setting to the non-default setting, and then they never turn it back on to the default setting. And of course, this is not something that you check before every flight, right? You never go deep into all these menus to see.
It's like turning it on and you're in mode 1. You're like, what is this? Yeah.
Well, I've had that happen to me as well. I had a student switch to mode 1 one time.
Shout out to Brandon Carr once again, because I think he flies in mode 1 actually.
Oh, no.
So I give him all the slack for that one.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
So we lost a drone, and we lost an expensive drone. This was a Mavic 3 Cine, and it just came crashing down to the ground. But to show you, this is something that was a setting deep inside, and now we have it on our checklist. Before we take off, we always go back and verify these things because it's happened once. So it could technically happen. More than likely never will happen again, but it's something that we're prepared for. So those are just little examples. But, to go back to the human factor thing, this is an area that I love because this is what I did my master's degree on, actually, aviation human factors. And there's so many things that we build into these drones. I can grab a drone from a brand, whatever brand A, and then I can go to a drone from brand B, and there's really no standardization between these two. At least when I go in an airplane, I can go in a 172 or I can go in a Piper. The flight control is in the same spot, and the throttle is mostly in the same spot, and the mixture is in the same spot. So the rudders operate the same way. I feel like we lack a little bit of standardization on the drone side, but I think it's because it's an industry that is still somewhat immature. Immature is the wrong word. It's still fairly new. It hasn't matured fully to the point where those things are standardized.
still growing and stuff. And give a little shameless plug here for DroneSense, but that's exactly one of the things that we love about our program, where literally the interface from one drone manufacturer is the same to another, to the different model. All of it's the same interface, and that's one of the best parts, I think, of DroneSense. I love that. But yeah, shameless plug with this. But again, even going back to this and talking about these real world scenarios and trainings that you have to learn by experience, other than just the fly up, orbit, land. More to it, right?
Yep. Yeah, you got to make it more complex, something that you're going to see in real life. The orbit is nice to learn how the sticks move, but then after that, you have to apply it. The bus, when we go to Burnet, Texas, they have a bus in there, and that's great. That's great real world stuff, right? They put a gun, a sticker of a gun on the seat. This is real life. This is what it's going to look like when you get out there. NIST can't really do that. NIST, again, is the basic training. Then you move on to the next level. So yeah.
Ooh, NIST 2.0, who knows, right? No.
Yeah. Yep. Well, they have more complex lanes. The NIST has evolved over the years, right? NIST now has, I don't even know how many lanes now. They started with like 3 lanes and then 5 lanes, and then now you have more complex lanes that you can create in an enclosed environment. And so it's evolved over the years as well, because they realized that these things need to move up to the next level, to the real world level.
Fair. How can ADM, or aeronautical decision-making principles, be particularly applied to common public safety drone scenarios?
Yeah, ADM is an all-the-time thing. Aeronautical decision-making is something that you apply all the time. When we teach ADM, we teach a lot of concepts, and I tell that to the students at the very beginning of the chapter. I said, you're gonna listen to what I'm saying, and you're gonna say, duh, this is like obvious. And it should be, and I hope this is what you say. I hope that when I tell you perceive, shit, I can't remember now what it is, the 3 Ps, and perform, you're going to look at this thing, and this is how your brain works. In most cases is you see something is happening, you formulate in your head how you're going to react, and then you react. And then you analyze what you did. Okay, did that work, or do I need to do something else? And I always give the example, you're driving your car, there's a little kid that comes in with a soccer ball, he's chasing a soccer ball, and he's about to get on the road. Perceive, you see that something is happening. What are you going to do? Are you going to accelerate? Are you going to go to the left, go to the right, or are you going to brake? And so then you do the action. So your brain, this ADM thing happens all the time. Every time you're flying, you should be looking around. You see a helicopter. If you see a helicopter that's flying around, it right away in your head, you should be thinking, okay, what's the risk here associated with this? We talk a lot about risk mitigation, risk management, and then taking action. So risk mitigation is looking at what's going on and saying, okay, well, that helicopter is at 500 feet, not really an issue. Boom, move on, continue my mission. Or that helicopter is at 200 feet, and now it's starting to get towards us. What do I do next? Do you freeze? Which is what a lot of people do, right? People freeze. They're like, oh, what do I do? Or do you climb, or do you descend? Sometimes climbing is actually the best solution. Or do you descend? What do you do? And so that's ADM right there in a nutshell. But those are things that you got to keep practicing for. And that's what the scenario-based training is all about, where you're going to keep applying these concepts and knowing how to react.
Makes perfect sense. And I mean, and even though it seems very simple, it's all about creating those neural pathways, right? So you know point to point, like, oh,
automation.
That's right. Yes, exactly. I've got this, and so on.
Yeah, it's a reflex. So, you got to have that reflex.
Yes. Now, what strategies can pilots and agencies employ to manage fatigue and stress during prolonged incidents or complex drone operations?
Yeah, fatigue is a tough one, especially in the public safety world, right? Because in any other world, like you look at the airline world, right? You have crew time. You're going to be on for so many hours, and then you can't fly anymore. That's it. There's no ifs and buts. You're just not going to be on the line to work again. And I know this doesn't always apply and is possible on the public safety side of things. So it all comes down to staffing and to make sure that you have enough people to do what you got to do. But I think understanding fatigue in the public safety world is almost more important than anything else. You got to understand what it's going to do to your body. Your reaction times are not going to be good. Your decision making is not going to be good. It's going to take a hit. I see a lot of people saying, "Well, I'm used to operating tired because I'm tired all the time." This is actually something that your brain tells you to make you feel good, but in reality, there's a lot of studies that show that nobody can really operate under fatigue. There's no training that will make you operate better under training. It just doesn't happen. So you have to be aware of the limitations of fatigue. Sleep is something that I've studied for many years. It's a topic that fascinates me. I've always wanted to sleep less to be
We'll
able
have to take
do
this
more.
offline, Greg, because I'm the same way. It's actually been like something I'm diving into tremendously nowadays.
Oh yeah. I've read so many books on sleep and the science of sleep, and I've done over the years multiple studies on myself on making sure that I get the right amount of sleep, just the right amount, so that I can work more because I'm a workaholic. But I've always wanted to be able to sleep 3 hours a night and then just be able to do more things. But in reality, it just doesn't happen because your body doesn't do that. So understanding sleep and understanding fatigue is, I think, extremely important for people in positions where you're going to need to be critical. You're going to have to be able to react quickly and to make these decisions quickly. So yeah, that's a very interesting topic.
Yes. Now, how can a human-machine interface design and operational workflows be optimized to improve pilot situational awareness and reduce errors?
Yes, I love this. This is, I think, where the right amount of automation versus manual flying comes into play. There's got to be a certain level of automation that helps the pilot do their daily thing, but not enough that it makes them complacent. And this is, again, going back to the main aircraft world, this is something that we've been dealing with at the airline level, and then more and more now in general aviation as well, because we have autopilots. I mean, I have a small airplane. We have a Diamond DA-40, which is a small general aviation airplane, 4-seater. It has an autopilot in it. So I can go up and I can turn on the autopilot, and then for hours on end, I can do nothing sitting in the cockpit. Is it a good thing? Not really, because my skills now are not being utilized, right? And if I do this day in and day out and day in and day out, eventually I lose my skill. And if I need to really fly the airplane because the autopilot doesn't work, then what happens to my skills? And so at the airline level, they've been struggling with this because airplanes are more complex, but now they have more automation. How do you have the right balance between the two? And the way that they do it at the airline is they have you do training every 6 months, where you go back in the simulator and you have to hand fly the aircraft, and you have to go through these emergencies so that you have that automation, right? That automatic behavior of just the quick response. And so on the drone side, I think we need to have the same thing, where you're going to have somebody that can hover, right? In the past, I don't know if you guys remember, for those that have been around long enough, when we had ADI mode, where the drone would start drifting and you always have to kind of correct it. Now we have GPS that is so rock solid. That helps. I think that really helps take away the stress of the pilot so they can really focus on what they're doing. The one thing that I would love to see in the future is more awareness of the airspace, other drones that are in the airspace, manned aircraft that are in the airspace. The accidents that we see today are drones that are colliding with helicopters. If you look at collisions between manned aircraft, I want to say 99% of them are helicopters. And so how can we help drone pilots to have that situational awareness enhanced by having more traffic information about who else is in the airspace? And but yeah, this is, to me, again, a fascinating world. When I did my master's degree, one of the topic that I looked into studying was it's called adaptive automation. And back then, this was 15 years ago now, this was almost science fiction, but today it's not. It's a concept where automation only turns on when the pilot gets stressed. So imagine you're flying a drone, and under normal operation, you don't need automation, or not a whole lot of automation. But as soon as stuff hits the fan and you start to get your heart rate goes up and your cognitive abilities are going down, then the automation kicks in and helps you and tells you, what it's doing. And it becomes like a co-pilot almost to help you do your things. And so that's, to me, just a fascinating topic.
Oh, I agree. I geek on this with you too. It'd be like having it connect to your wearable technology and be like, oh, increased heart rate. Actually, you only got 5 hours of sleep last night, so we're gonna add you a little bit. Man, it would be
But then yeah, and with AI, I mean, you can think about what you just said, right? You can see that the person hasn't slept well. You can see that their heart rate is going up. If you had eye tracking movement because you have glasses on, you can see that they're starting to panic almost. The breathing rate goes up, and then the pupil it starts to change. Now you kick in the automation, and you don't even have to explain why to the person. You can just say, "Hey, I'm kicking
right.
in, and here I'm doing this. I'm doing this for you." And now you have a visual observer,
Hey,
kind of
now
like
I've
on
got
demand. Yeah, pretty much. But think about the tech where it is today. We have AI that is just booming and becoming so capable, but also we have wearables. We do a lot of augmented reality and virtual reality modules here at Pilot. We have a team that actually creates modules for virtual reality training on the airplane side. I can imagine having a pair of those glasses, smart glasses that you have on, and then now you can see traffic. I can see that there's another drone in the airspace right here. It tells me how far it is. It tells me it becomes red if it's an issue. I can see that there is a helicopter coming in the distance. I can see that there is airspace. I can see there's people on the ground that are getting highlighted. Maybe they're behind a building. I can see that so imagine all of that information to help the pilots when they need it. That is just amazing to me.
Quick break to highlight whether you're flying, sharing, or managing your drone program, DroneSense has everything you need. It's hardware agnostic, so it works with a variety of drones, sensors, and other hardware, giving you ultimate flexibility. And with the ability to collaborate across agencies securely, DroneSense helps you scale from one drone to 100 plus, supporting you in everything from routine calls to disaster response. To learn more and get started, check out the link in the description. Man, full HUD, right, and right in our hands. I mean, like not even this advanced, but I had an experiment where I used an Apple Vision Pro connected to my DJI controller and was able to fly in full sun outside with a huge screen and no sun in my eye, and could see everything operational and the drone by barely moving my eyes. And I was like, this is where this is going. I see this future. It's like we're already doing it in our cars where we have, like a holder to hold our phone that's closer to the vision of the road. And then we've got heads up display from certain manufacturers. Like it's getting there.
It's getting there.
We're almost there.
It's getting there.
It's exciting.
Yeah, and that's really exciting to me. The using that technology to help the pilot make less mistakes and be less stressed at the control. It's amazing. Yeah. That's awesome. I can't wait.
Now, what are some key components of building a strong, proactive safety culture within a public safety drone unit?
Safety culture. That is a tough thing to do. The safety culture comes from the top. Quite frankly, it comes from the management, and it's something. I'll give you an example to illustrate this. Okay, I took over a flight school back in 2014, and that flight school had leadership that wasn't really in line with the safety culture that I wanted. So one day we had a flight instructor come back with an airplane, and they had done a tail strike. So tail strike is when the tail of the airplane, you flare a little too much on landing and you grab the tail on the runway, and it kind of creates a little bit of damage on the tail. We have tail plates on the back, and that tail plate, I think, either broke or was whatever happened. And this was within weeks of me taking over this operation. And the chief instructor decided to send an email to everyone and said, if I find out who did this, they're going to get fired. And I was like, oh my God, that is the absolute worst reaction you can have to an event like this, right? This is a safety culture. This is the safety management system we talked about. So very quickly, it's a fear. It's horrible. And so what do you think is going to happen? Do you think somebody is going to come out and say, hey, this is what happened and let's learn from this? Absolutely not. Never going to happen. So I quickly sent a message to all the instructors, and I said, and we only had about 12 instructors. And I said, listen, I don't care to know who did it. I just want to know what happened so that we can all learn from the mistake, if it was a mistake, and then share with everyone. And I said, if you feel comfortable, put a note under my desk at night. They had access later in the evening. The flight instructors were always here late. And I said, tell me what happened. You don't have to tell me your name. And guess what? Came in the next day, and I had a little envelope under my desk, under my door, that had a description of what had happened. I don't know who did it. I didn't care to know who did it, but they had a full description. They said the student was a little too slow, they flared, and then we had a gust of wind, it caught us, and then I didn't have time to react as the flight instructor. Okay, you know what? Fair enough. That's something that could have happened to anyone. Let's share that information with the entire team so that we don't have it happen again. And so that's your safety culture right here, right? That's the difference between a punitive safety culture and a safety culture that's going to embrace everyone, where mistakes are okay and mistakes happen. So that would be my recommendation, is that kind of safety culture with your department, where people are free to talk about the things that happen.
That's great. You really are cultivating a true culture with that. And it is just learning about it from everyone. It's not, yeah, and I like it. Now, Greg, let's dive into some future proofing of public safety drone programs, training, technology, integration. Let's dive in here. I know the drone landscape is constantly evolving, as we've discussed a couple times here. What are some key emerging trends in drone technology, like sensors or autonomy or so on, and regulations that that most public safety agencies need to adapt in their training methodologies, operational strategies, and integration efforts to leverage these advancements effectively and maintain compliance?
Yeah. So one thing comes to mind to me is beyond visual line of sight. I mean, I think this is one of the capabilities that every drone department for public safety is going to want to have in the future, whether it's a DFR, I know this is a big keyword at the moment with the drone as first responder, or whether it's just operating drones beyond visual line of sight within a short distance, or even citywide, right? We see a lot of programs now that are just citywide, where drones can be deployed anywhere and everywhere. But I think that's going to be, if you don't want to be left behind, although it's not a competition, right? But if you really want to take to the next level, I think that capability of doing beyond visual line of sight is going to be very important. Now, the good news is I think the FAA is working on something. I mean, we know the FAA is working on something with Part 108 or whatever it's going to be called. And we don't know when it's coming out. We don't know all the details, but we know that it is designed to make beyond visual line of sight more routine. So if you ask me today, what is the limitation of drones? It's beyond visual line of sight, and going with it, flying over people, flying over moving vehicles. So it's not going to be a free-for-all. I don't believe so. I don't have any insider information, but it is going to require for you to make that.
Are you sure, Greg? Because I always love watching your leaked rumors online. I love it.
No, I don't have any on that. And if I did, I wouldn't talk about it. Okay. So if I'm talking about it, it's not a rumor. It's not.
Yeah, under hashtag drone pilot for life tweeted this, that I got the secret photo. Yeah, I'm kidding.
Yep, that's right. So, yeah. But yeah, I think this is something you want to have in your quiver is the ability to fly beyond visual line of sight. So it's going to require safety mitigation. It's going to require you to talk to the FAA, and again, ask the key to the car and make sure you're doing it safely. But yeah, it's going to unlock a lot of potential. I mean, our little police department here, Prescott is not a big town. It's about 60,000 people, but our little department, they're talking about a DFR program and having the ability to deploy drones if they need to. And they've relied on the drones. We listen to the drone team talk about how the commanders now, they're like, where's my drone? I want my drone. I don't have eye in the sky. I need to have eye in the sky. And they're using DroneSense, by the way. So it's amazing to hear them talk about these things. They just had a hostage situation the other day, and sure enough, they had the drone deploy, and he said, I lost signal for like 5 seconds, and the commander was like, where's my drone? I need eyes on this. And so I said, this is good. It's job security for you, but man, it's going to be awesome.
Gotta love that. And now I've been in a bunch of different of the industries within our industry of multifaceted kind of things in the drone world, and part of my world has been the like commercial prosumer production side of things, and where I'd be like flying for a Red Rock show, and like I'm the drone pilot and doing the whole thing. But when it was just traditionally only cameras going back and forth for the live shots, right? And traditionally in a public safety operation, it's just either canine or on the ground or so on. And now it's constantly, where's the drone? Where's the drone? Like, I need the drone image. Like, it's pretty rewarding to see it all kind of come together now.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great to hear. That's what we want to hear. We obviously want to see more drones out there being used for good. We love the stories when there is somebody being found that would have otherwise probably died, and a drone found them. It's so rewarding.
It's such an incredible tool and such an incredible perspective that we get from this amazing technology. Gotta love it. Now, diving back in now, specialized training is required for pilots operating with these advanced sensors and thermal imageries and LiDAR. Could you expand on some of this specialized training?
Yes, I especially on the thermal side of things, it's kind of a complex sensor. You see things in there that you think are certain things, but you think it's a temperature reading, but it's actually a reflection. Emissivity is a bit of a turd sometime, and so you have to understand these things. So I think that's where the training is so important. You might be tempted to put somebody on a thermal drone and said, well, here this color means it's hot, this color means it's cold. End of discussion. It's so much more than that. So make sure that your agents are trained on using the drones correctly, especially for thermal. LiDAR is a completely different ballgame. LiDAR and mapping in general requires quite a bit of knowledge. Although I have to say, for some of the application in the public safety world, not nearly as much, because you're not looking for extreme accuracy necessarily. You're looking for more of a gross map of the area, right? A gross rendering. And there's a lot of tools now that do that kind of automatically, which is good. Like, things like Skybrowse, for example, that can map a room very quickly, or So, but yeah, the specialized training is important. Don't think that just giving the drone to one of your employees and say, hey, here's a cool toy, go have
Do
fun.
the drone thing, go. And you're like,
yeah, exactly. So don't be afraid to provide them training, even a level 1 thermography, or at least have one person level 1 certified that can teach the other people later down on exactly how to use
and
thermal.
it's fascinating. I've been through these programs, and it's really, it gives you another filter to this world that you get to see things, and you're like, no, I understand what radiometric means. No, it's just, very interesting.
Yeah, something that can be reused in so many situations, especially for obviously firefighters. The thermal aspect is so important. But
yeah, I mean, randomly, I was in North Dakota doing oil and gas, and we were just like surveying like a pre-pad build, and I'm flying thermal just to see what was there, and I found a vintage Smith & Wesson pistol.
Oh wow!
Like, randomly, and like you just there's so much interesting things that you get to see that are just hidden or below, and could change the entire scope of your work, and not even outside of just fire. It's, I don't know, just fascinating. Now,
it is fascinating.
Yeah. Now, how should training programs evolve to better prepare pilots for operations involving greater autonomy and eventually routine BVLOS?
Yeah, the training for BVLOS is definitely going to be different, because now, and this is self-serving in a sense, because I fly in the air with drones in my airplane, and I want to make sure that people that are going to fly BVLOS are going to be aware of other traffic. It's a different ballgame, right? You could be doing a local flight right here, and you look up, and now you can see a helicopter coming around the corner. Now, if you fly several miles away, you don't have the situational awareness. You don't have the airspace command, right? And being able to do it from the drone itself is very difficult. You think that you might be able to just turn to the left and turn to the right and be able to see traffic. But the reality of things is that airplanes fly really fast. Helicopters fly very, very fast in the air, and you only have seconds to react. And so my fear is that as we start to fly beyond visual line of sight more routinely, is collisions with a manned aircraft. And, for the drone, it doesn't mean much, but for the person on board, if they have passengers or whatever it is, it can be fatal. And so we have to make sure that the training involves recognizing other aircraft in the area and avoiding other aircraft in the area. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge of this industry. But one of the bigger problems is that we haven't had a fatal accident due to a drone collision. In most cases, the drone collisions that we've seen resulted in damage, granted, but never in an urgency or in an emergency for the manned aircraft. And I think we're getting complacent with the fact that so far, all these examples we've seen have been fairly low-key. It doesn't mean that it's going to be in the future, right? A drone going through a windshield of a helicopter, if you've ever seen the thickness of the windshield of a helicopter, you'd be amazed. It's a piece of paper. It's not, but it's very, very thin. A drone that goes through that at the right speed would totally break through that window and that glass. And then, if it hits the pilot in the face, the pilot will just, pass out and potentially crash. So, and I know I sound alarmist, but I want to make sure that the crashes we've seen so far are not used to say, oh, this is fine. It's just a little boo-boo on the aircraft. We're not going to do that much damage, because we have Matrice 300, 350. We have large aircraft that are flying out there. These would do a lot more damage.
Instead of a little Mini 2. Yeah, exactly. It's going to be, I don't even want to breathe into an existence, but we need to be very, very on top of this for sure. So, yeah. Now, let's talk about what all the captured data that we get from all of this and so on. Sure, a drone does all these wonderful things, but we have all this data from all these incredible sensors and modules and stuff. What are the challenges and best practices for integrating drone-delivered data, like obviously video feeds or thermal imagery or LiDAR, into existing public safety systems, say like CAD or common operating pictures and such?
Yeah, I think you can look at two different types of data when we talk about public safety. In the commercial world, it's mostly capturing data that you can look at in the future and process when you get back on the ground. I think on the public safety side, you have another set of data, which is live data that's provided to, and you know this better than anybody at DroneSense, which is providing that data to everybody who's involved in the operation live. And that's such a powerful thing that we can do, overwatch and providing things that you would have never been able to see otherwise. So yeah, there's two different types. Coming back on the ground and processing the data, I think is great in an emergency situation where you have a hurricane, for example, and you can do a map of the area to find out exactly how much damage has been done, and then how to go and go on site. We've seen that being done a lot. Or an earthquake, or a tornado, or responses to these very crazy scenarios that have destroyed, where satellite images would be doing nothing, absolutely nothing. And so it's important there, I think, is the speed at which we can process that data. And we've gone so much better at this. Think about 4 or 5 years ago, how would you create a 3D rendering of a site like after a hurricane, and how fast it is today? It's amazing. It's amazing to see this. And then I mentioned Skybrowse before, but they just had a press release recently where in their DFR program, they're processing the data live from the drone and being able to provide this 3D model directly to the officers on the ground. I think that's just amazing to me. And so, and I know DroneSense does things like that as well. So that, I think, the processing of the data very quickly to provide to the officers on the ground is going to be key in the future. It's such a great tool for them to utilize.
Yes. Now, let's talk about some regulations now. How will evolving regulations impact public safety operations and training requirements?
Yeah, that's always a guess, right? How is this going to change? I think, I firmly believe that the FAA took an approach with drones that is the opposite of what they did with manned aircraft aviation. Manned aircraft aviation, the regulation is written in blood, right? You've heard that term before, where something happens and then we change the regs, we make it tighter and tighter and tighter. And on the drone side, I think they went the opposite way. They said, we kind of know what could happen, so we're going to prevent it right away. And then from here, we're going to kind of relax things as we go. Several years ago, you couldn't fly at night without having a waiver, and now you can because they removed that requirement because they realized that after a while, okay, this is a safe thing that can be done. Flying over people was a pain in the butt. It still is, quite frankly, but now we have an avenue to make it happen with categorized drone, with a waiver process. It is becoming easier. So I think the FAA is finally realizing they're getting kind of a grasp of this drone thing that's grown so quickly. And then now they're kind of backing out a little bit and saying, okay, and then I think Part 108 is going to be, again, a proof of that, where you'll be able to fly beyond visual line of sight if you do the following. So the FAA is slow. It's a government agency, but I think they're learning. They're listening and they're learning and they're changing and adapting.
Yeah. And so far, hey, it's great. So
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yep,
Whether it's
agreed.
called 108 or
Whatever.
what would be another adjective, not cow. No, I don't know. Won't even
Just
go there.
BVLOS, BVLOS something.
Yeah. What is the significance of initiatives like Blue UAS for public safety procurement and cybersecurity considerations?
Yeah, the Blue US thing is really interesting. We've created a standard that some companies can meet and not others, which I find really interesting. I wish, if you ask me, how would you change the Blue UAS program? I would make it a set of standards that that any company that can prove they can do it successfully can apply for. It would make more drones available to public safety agencies, to even the federal government in general. I have a hard time seeing restrictions on drones based on not a whole lot of evidence, or any evidence for that matter. And so I would love to see the Blue US program being more encompassing and it's changed. Again, this is another one of these things, right? We had Blue US 1.0, Blue US 2.0, and this is evolving, where the first version really only had 6 drones, and then the second version had another 10 or so drones. And then now there is a third version where some drones have been dropped and new drones have been added. And so all of these things are evolving. I just hope that it can be a bit more inclusive.
I would agree, and I'm very much on the side of it. And like, I'm all about American manufacturing and us making things here. I'm all about it, but at the same time, I'm very much about giving the choice to our public safety officers and teams out there doing this to get the best tool for the job, and whatever that might be, or if initiatives need to occur for programs that are made here, or we're just catching up here by what's made in America or under Blue US and so on. I mean, I'm here for it all, but we'll see. We'll see how this evolves.
And I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with this. You know, I'm very sensitive to the fact that some government agencies should not be using foreign drones, regardless of where they're from. You know, regardless of where they're from, we should continue to provide tools that are made in the U.S. It's important that we have a manufacturing capability in the United States to do it, not to the detriment of an entire industry. So we have to be careful how we get there, right? We're not going to get there overnight. That's the thing that I always say. We're not going to get there overnight. We need to get there step by step. But in the meantime, we can't cut the branch that we're sitting on. And I feel like that's kind of what we're doing right now, where we could completely annihilate the entire drone industry by taking steps a little too quickly. And so, we have to be very careful with this. And, you know, some agencies, we talk about firefighters a lot. Do firefighters need to have a Blue UAS when they fly around a fire? What kind of information are they collecting that is so critical that we think somebody else could be taking that information? I think we have to realize the level of data that is being collected and how critical that data actually is. So I think there's different branches. The FBI, should the FBI be using foreign-made drone? Probably not. Probably not a good idea, right? If there is a risk. So I think it's not black and white. It's not a 0 and a 1. There's a lot of values in between.
Yes, I agree. Now, there's something we had touched on earlier, and I know we both agree with this now. So the culture of continuously learning and adoption, we know this is essential for both pilots and program managers. Could you expand on this a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, learning never stops. I've been teaching aviation, and for 22 years, I've been a flight instructor now. And even to this day, every once in a while, I learn something new. The other day, I learned that I've been teaching something wrong for 22 years. It's the designation for lake, and a perennial lake versus a non-perennial lake. I had those two flipped. And when I talked to people, they said, I had it wrong too. And it took me reading this one document to find out that it was incorrect. So I fixed it now. But now I feel like an idiot because for 22 years, I've been teaching this wrong because somebody taught it wrong to me in the first place. But anyways, so yeah, learning is a lifelong thing. You never stop learning. And so we have to have that appetite, especially in this industry. This industry is changing so quickly with technology that is changing all the time. If you stop learning, you're going to be left behind. You're going to be left in the world of 4 or 5 years ago. Think about 4 or 5 years ago. Feels like 20 years in real life with the technology, the way it's changed, and the capabilities and everything. So yeah, never stop learning for sure.
Never stop learning. And this also goes back into the community aspect, right? I mean, I know DroneSense at its infancy, it needed to learn. And so it reached out to community leaders in fire and EMS and public safety, FBI, all of it to come together to create what we know as now DroneSense. And I know that this is a big thing that Charles Warner and drone responders and such says as well. It's constantly sharing information, what I've learned here, what I learned here. Hey, I used this drone with this payload and it worked great here for wildland mitigation. So on. It's constantly learning from each other and giving each other a safe harbor to learn from, right?
Yep, absolutely. And I think this is why what we do is so important and why we keep doing it. Whether it's with a paid course or a free course, this is why we provide so much free information because I don't want people to be restricted to learning because they can't pay for it. There are so many things that can be provided for free that we should be providing for free because it's kind of like the basic information that you need to know to operate safely. We all lose the day that somebody hits a 737 on takeoff with a drone. The entire industry loses. And so that's why we provide so much training for recreational pilots for free, because I believe that if we don't, this is something that's going to hurt us in the long run.
Yes, I agree. Excellent. Well said. Now, Greg, we're getting down to some of our closing questions here, and I would love to keep going with you. We'll have to put up another episode here sometime soon and dive in deeper. And maybe it's just sleep studies and drones.
Yes. Yeah, let's do it.
But hey, neuropathway expansion. But anyway, so with your extensive experience in teaching at universities and your work with the Pilot Institute, what do you hope your students and trainees take away from your courses?
It's becoming. This is a great question, and I think I have a great answer for that. It's becoming more than an operator or a pilot. It's becoming an aviator. Okay, and I hope the subtlety in the difference in the term is clear. An aviator is someone who flies in the airspace but behaves like somebody who is in charge of their aircraft and is respectful of others in the airspace and has command of the airspace and understand what's going on. An operator is just somebody who is behind the control and is just flying. And not it's not a negative term by any means, but there's a next step, right? There's an operator and a pilot, and then there is the aviator, somebody who breathes aviation, who understands the whole environment and the whole complex environment. And so I'm hoping this is what we're doing with our students. I've always cringed at just passing the test. And this is what I've made my whole career about, which is teaching more than passing the test. I want you to be proficient at what you do. I want you to get out of this and know something so that when a helicopter comes in the distance, you just don't look at it and then go back to looking down at your controller, right? You're an aviator now. You say, oh, this could be in my way. I could be a danger to that aircraft as well. Now I have a full understanding of the whole entire environment. And then I can also say, I know that there's an airport over there because I checked. And so seeing a helicopter is not foreign. I know that there's a helicopter because there's an airport, and probably they're in a traffic pattern, and maybe they're for this runway and this. So, right, you have a full understanding of the whole aviation ecosystem. So that's really my hope, is that we can convert as many people as we can to being interested in being aviators rather than just drone pilots.
I love that. No. I'm going to start looking at it differently. I'm an aviator. Like, I got to get into that. I love that. Now, with everything that you've experienced and so on, has there been a surprising or impactful moment from the classroom that always stays with you even to today?
Oh, that's an interesting question. It's yeah. The one thing that keeps me going every day, and I think that my entire team keeps us going every day, is the feedback that we get from people because their lives have changed because of drones or because of airplane, but a lot of time because of drones. We have veterans that come out of the service and have a hard time getting back into real life, right? Into civilian life, not real life, civilian life. And and they find drones and they find something that uh, it gets their brain out of what they used to do and gets them reconverted into civilian life. We have people that lost their jobs. I've had multiple people that lost their jobs, were able to get a drone certificate, and then go and get hired by a company, start their own company, change their life around. Um, Multiple times I had people reach out to me and said, I can't afford the course right now. Is there a discount that you can give me? And usually I don't give them a discount. I just give them the course for free. And I said, pass it along when you're good, right? And so many times these people come back and they said, this changed my life. I remember a pastor one time reached out to me and he had lost his job and he wanted to reconvert and do drone stuff. And I gave him access to the course and he came back and he said, now I work for the city. I'm in charge of their drone program at the city. And this would not have been possible without, and how can you, like, I'm talking about this right now, my hair up on my arms, but how can you not continue to do these things when you get this feedback almost on a daily basis? People whose lives are being changed because of drones or airplanes. And it is just so good. It's just such a good feeling. So that's not one thing. It's just an everyday thing. The impact that I think drones are making on the community.
Well said. I love that. That's great. Now, as you continue to contribute to the growth of the drone industry and aviation, right? Looking into the future, what developments are you the most excited to witness in this space?
I think it's the changes in regulation and the removal of regulation. I'm excited about the beyond visual line of sight stuff. I'm excited about large drones being used in agriculture, for example. I'm excited about seeing drones, UAM in general, the unmanned aircraft management, that we're going to see the drones that are going to carry people and take them to the hospital, like we're seeing ambulances right now, air taxi in the future. All of these things, whether they're small drones or big drones, I think it's really cool to see this whole ecosystem. Drone deliveries, not as much, not something that I'm super interested in, but everything else is just really exciting to me to see that we can get this technology developed. And if you've been, this is not an old industry, but if you've been seeing it from kind of the beginning and seeing it grow to where it is, man, you cannot not be excited about what it's going to be in 10 years, right? You got to think about, what is this going to look like in 10 years? So it's super fun.
Yeah, it's like, don't control the drone, just think about it, and it does.
Yep.
It's going to be just wild. Or your pilot's going to be like an Optimus robot or something. I don't know, like,
I have a theory on that too.
City would have. I'd love to go down on that one. It's like, or there's going to be a centralized, drone serviced box location that that everybody of every different agency within the city uses, and even infrastructure. Like, there's just so much and so many concepts, and so it's going to be really fun to see the new ones that pop out, like DFR when that popped out, and like what's going to be the next thing like that. So
this is the flying cars that we've been really talking about for 40 years, right? Finally seeing the flying cars out there. I mean, it's going to be super cool.
That's awesome. Well, Greg, thanks again for taking the time to visit with us here today and share all of your insights. I mean, you're just a wealth of knowledge and just an incredibly interesting individual. So I love this conversation, and I'm really excited for the next one. So thanks again, and really appreciate it. And then a big thank you to everyone on the internet right now listening to Dronecast. We're just so happy to provide these episodes for you. But thank you, Greg. Thank you, listeners. Have a great day. Take care. Thank you for joining us on Dronecast.
Thanks for having me.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Dronecast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time. I hope you found today's conversation insightful and thought-provoking. As always, we want to hear from you. What do you think of today's topics? Do you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes? Don't forget, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn at Dronecast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time, or head over to DroneSense.com/Dronecast to share your thoughts and get more content from the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and sharing it with others who are passionate about the future of drones and public safety. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.